We are going to move on from the Summer Games Fest and we're going to move on to, I guess, the big one that we wanted to really talk about, and that was the Xbox showcase.
Specs.
And we were talking about how this was last week. If you did end up catching last week's show, we were talking about how this was Xbox's opportunity to really have a big show. There was
This is the
pressure.
year, boys. This is the year.
There was pressure. There's no PlayStation going around at the moment, which there might be. You never know. Um, but there was a lot of pressure on Xbox to be able to show that they are doing something with not only their IPs, but they need to bounce back from the closures of Arcane and Tango, all this other stuff that's happening in the background with
The multiplayer, the multi-plat approach, the studio closures, the 1900 developers being let go. There was
and
a lot this year.
ABK and Halo going to PlayStation and all this sort of stuff. They needed
Sarah Bond,
Yeah.
literally crumbling live on an interview.
So they needed to come out swinging. Josh, did Xbox come out swinging?
Oh boy, this was like the closest I have felt to an E3 showcase since 2021. I think that was the last big Sony
2021.
showcase. That was the last Sony showcase that was big, right? That's 3 years ago. Like, I don't think this is, honestly, I tweeted this afterwards. This was probably the best and biggest Xbox's press conference showcase, whatever they want to call it, in its history. I thought that the pacing was fantastic. The games shown were fantastic. You felt the excitement in the room. The audience, the Xbox audience online, all seemed to be really happy with it. I think this was one of those. I think they showed just over 30 games, maybe it was 31, 32. And I always said, look, if there's a showcase with 10 games, if you find 3 of them that you're really into, that's a win, right? Because those other 7 are for other people, and then it's a kind of a collective feeling. I think, honestly, half of the games shown here I was genuinely interested in. Some things missing. I was weird having games that were slated for this year that still don't have release dates. I've got a tinfoil hat thinking behind maybe why that is the case, and we could talk about that later. But I think expectations were met, exceeded. I'll go straight into my overall rating here. This is going to be our first 10 out of 10.
You reckon that the Xbox showcase
Actually,
for 2024 was
I'm taking it
a
back.
10 out of 10 modern masterpiece?
I'm going to give it a 9.5. And the reason why I'm scaling back half a point is because it was missing release dates. If it had the release dates for Indiana Jones, Avowed, which are all games set for this year, I think this would have been a 10. But 9.5, 10, I'm happy to go either or. I think this was genuinely...
They said 2024. That's enough.
You know what? I'm going to give it a 10. It's going for a 10. I think it was just a stellar showcase. Like, if you walked out of this conference disappointed as an Xbox fan, there is nothing Xbox will ever do to impress you.
Yeah.
Everything that should have been there was there. Things that may have thought that wouldn't be there were there. 10 out of 10. What about you?
I'm harsher.
Ooh.
I'm harsher.
You're the Xbox guy out of the two of us.
out of the two of us, yes. I liked what they did. I think there was, like, even for me, I tried to avoid looking at rumors and all that sort of stuff leading up to this showcase because I wanted to genuinely be surprised. And I was. There were a couple of game announcements there which I didn't even think we were going to see anything, or let alone gameplay or anything like that. And they were able to showcase that. I think the one thing I have about it is that there was no addressing. Well, they did address, like, play the games wherever you want on any device. Xbox is the best, yada yada yada. They gave like 20 seconds to the new consoles coming, which as like kind of like an afterthought. But there was no kind of mention about their first party titles and how much I guess I wanted to hear them say we care about them. Like not necessarily in those words, but make it sound like you're creating games for the passion of it rather than, okay, we need to put it on other platforms to make money. Like there was like, I don't know, something in the conversation that just didn't quite translate over. Games wise, fantastic. But I think,
I think I know what you mean. You're saying
Yeah.
that it was just this. It's like you've gone on a date, right? And then in the back of your mind, there is something that's just irking you about this person, and it's just not addressed. The date was fantastic, the dinner was fantastic, conversation was great, but you're like, there's something that I need to address, and it wasn't addressed. I know what you mean. There was that tension in the room where it's like, how are they going to address the multi-plat stuff? What games are coming to PlayStation? How are they going to talk about exclusives? How are they going to say that we care about console and hardware and all that stuff?
they got dessert, which was vanilla ice cream on a plate, and they used a straw.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm
but
probably a bit more lenient on that because I just don't think that, in my mind, they were never going to address it here. It was always going to be, like I said last week, right? They'd probably show a game in the Xbox Wire article. They will mention it's coming to other platforms. This isn't the time to talk about Starfield coming to PS5, which I still think it is, and other games. Phil Spencer did go on with IGN afterwards with Ryan McCaffrey and said, quote, you are going to see more of our games on more platforms, and we just see that as a benefit to the franchises we're building. It's happening. I just think that it will happen later this year. It will be an Xbox Wire article saying, here's the slate of games coming to PS5 as well as Xbox. Here's the dates. Maybe that's why we didn't get some release dates. I thought it was weird that we didn't get the Shattered Space Starfield release date. We got a trailer for it, but no mention of release date. Why is that? Well, maybe we're going to get a trailer later this year that has a release date and has pre-orders and all that for all the platforms it's coming to. So,
and also available on PlayStation.
But I get your point. I just don't think this was the time and place. This was a time for Xbox to say, hey, we've got games. We're all about the games. And I think they did that very well. But you are right. They are kind of tiptoeing around the elephant in the room that at some point is going to come up.
Yeah.
And I definitely think we'll hear about it.
But as much as I said I was harsher, like I was looking for like one line, which I didn't get, and that's fine. I still gave it a 9.5.
Yeah.
It's not a 10, but the quality of first party titles that we're seeing as part of this showcase goes to show that yes, Xbox may have been cooking almost as long as the Carlton Blues and the AFL, but now we're finally starting to see some meals. We're starting to see what's coming out of the kitchen.
$70 billion.
Only took billions of dollars and hours of our time, all wasted, hoping, with people with their Game Pass subscriptions that they forget to cancel. It's finally come to this.
The dominoes are finally falling, huh?
So let's go through the games. Let's just go through them, see how we feel. There's enough here to talk about each and every game, I think.
Yeah.
First off, interesting. And I think I called this last week, although I think this was more for the Summer Games Fest. Started off with Black Ops 6.
Smart move, in my opinion.
And then they're like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about more at the end of the show. I'm pretty sure I said something along those lines last week.
I think you did. I think you were saying, I think you might have said that it was going on the Jeff Keighley show and that we would talk about
Jeff Keighley, yeah.
But still,
at the start,
we'll allow it.
By the way, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, get excited. We'll talk more after the show, after the Xbox show. And to kind of already hype you initially and then kind of get you to sit on afterwards rather than just tack it on at the end. So, knew it was coming.
Yeah. No, I think a great way to start the show. Kind of reconfirmed, right? You think Xbox, now you're going to think Call of Duty. We're the home of Call of Duty. Yeah, great way to start.
And I do also like the fact that, and I'll just bundle in the Black Ops showcase that they did at the end of it into my little tidbit about it, but some of the changes that they're making to things like multiplayer, which multiplayer is the big thing about Call of Duty. Yes, we talk about the campaigns and I play the campaign, but the multiplayer is where your longevity comes in with a Call of Duty game. And the fact that they're bringing back prestiges, the fact that you can prestige multiple times, the fact that they've got like even the character models doing a 360 rotational view and actually like roll around on their back and such. So instead of, how when you do the dive and you like rotate and do a 180, it's like you kind of face plant and you turn around your whole body. So now it's like you're actually rolling around when you look behind you. Did you see any of that? Did you watch the...
Yeah, I did. I kind of skimmed through. To be honest, that's the only thing I kind of skimmed through was the Call of Duty stuff. And that was just purely because it really doesn't have much interest to me. I did find it funny. I was trying to find it after the fact, but the way that this game's being launched into Game Pass is super interesting, right? I think if I read it correctly,
Yep.
that the single player will be available for Xbox console Game Pass, but you will need Ultimate, which gives you online access, right, for the multiplayer stuff.
I believe that's the
So
case, yes.
it is interesting to see how this affects things, like just talking business for a second, like how many of the people who would have purchased it are going to use Game Pass. To me, this is always going to be a game that people were going to buy, especially if it's a game where they just buy Call of Duty and maybe one other game. I just think you're probably going to see those people continue to do that. So, I mean, Phil Spencer spoke about that afterwards, right? Buy your game, subscribe to the game, buy it on PlayStation. We don't care. Just support and play the games that you love. So, yeah, like I said, I think a great announcement.
Well, they're still going to have to pay for Xbox Gold subscription anyway to be able to play online. So regardless of whether or not, if they have
That's
Game
true.
Pass, great, they've got that there. But and then they've got Gold subscription. Well, they've probably got Ultimate anyway. Otherwise, if they're buying the game individually, well, that's more money into the coffers rather than a subscription fee. So either way,
Yeah,
Microsoft's
good
winning
point.
both
Yeah,
ways,
100%. Every way. Yeah.
every way. The next game that came up, this I was surprised by. I didn't think that this would actually
Really?
show. Remember, I went in deep. I went dark for this one.
You went in deep, did you?
I
That's
went in
good to know.
deep, and I went in dark for Doom: The Dark Ages.
Nice.
I didn't know that we'd be getting another Doom this soon.
Yeah. This was one that was leaked. It was under the working title Doom the Year Zero, I think was the working title. This was something that was kind of leaked before the show. And is a game that was leaked and confirmed to be coming day and date to PS5 as well. So this is interesting, right? This is id Software, part of Bethesda, part of ZeniMax, part of Xbox. Is a legacy title technically. It's got a history of being on PlayStation, but regardless of where it's launching and how it's launching and to what, this looked great. I was actually having this conversation with my uncle earlier today. I'm not really a first person guy, like across the board, and maybe that's kind of played into the reason why, like even in the past when things were exclusive onto separate platforms, where the Xbox acquisitions really didn't affect me too much because the ZeniMax stuff had a lot of first person things in terms of Fallout and Starfield and Doom and
It's
all
all
that.
third
So
person as well.
it is third person, but it's kind of like a janky third person. And I'm not much of a Western RPG guy, where I'm more of a Japanese style RPG fan. And then obviously Activision is Call of Duty and Overwatch, again, first person stuff. So I haven't really got, and I say all that to say this, that I am wanting to try the genre a bit more. And I think that the first two Doom games is in the new, Eternal and the first 2018 Doom is or has been part of PlayStation Plus previously. So when I saw this trailer, saw Doom guy getting into the Megazord. I was like, this is pretty cool. This is really cool. I like the
Chainsaw Shield.
chainsaw shield and the way even the shotgun with the skulls being crushed and all the particles being used as bullets. It was just a really impressive shooting and first person pedigree that comes out of id. So I think I'm going to play the two previous Doom games first and pick this one up because it looks great.
Yeah, I also think that like Doom has some of the best movement in a first person shooter, which is like it's kind of a smooth movement. So it's not like Destiny. So Destiny is its own. It's got its own traversal that works really well for what it is. But Doom, it just feels smooth. It's like you're gliding on a river of blood everywhere you go. Like you're moving
Yeah.
around. There's like hooks and stuff, and
And there's an arena, you're taking on enemies, you're dodging bullets. It kind of
yeah,
reminds me, and doesn't remind me because I think Returnal would have taken elements from Doom, but very similar to Returnal where it's like, you're kind of shooting and dodging at the same time and taking enemies down. Of course, Doom's got a long, long, long legacy of being one of the first person shooters. Again, this just looks great. I just think the tone, I think what put me off Doom originally, the two previous games, is like the dark horror aspects of it. But the more I've seen of the game, and outside of like maybe initial trailers, there's like a goofy side to Doom. As much as it's like bloody and gory,
Yeah,
there's like
yeah.
a silliness behind it. And I think this trailer has a lot more of that than the other games did in their trailers, right? The whole dragon thing, the whole Megazord like mech suit that he gets into. I'm like, this is interesting. So yeah, super excited to play this one. Yeah, looks great.
Well, the next one that it dropped afterwards was another first party title, and that was State of Decay 3, which we knew about for a number of years. Like, it first got announced in 2020. We knew it was coming at some stage. They've been pretty quiet, but now we actually got a trailer for it.
Mm.
So I tried playing the first State of Decay, but I didn't really get captured. But I'm looking at the State of Decay 3, and I'm like, oh, I could go back, give it a go. What were your thoughts on this one, Josh?
Yeah, I'm not a active fan of State of Decay. This is one where it's kind of like a in-engine, not really gameplay. There was kind of gameplay thrown within the trailer, but again, this kind of looked like one where it was like, you know how we spoke about like simulated gameplay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Cinematic gameplay.
Yeah, where it's like, I don't know if this is really what the game's going to look like in motion. Like, obviously, there's no HUD, and sometimes developers turn the HUD off when they're showing games to make it look more cinematic. But this kind of gave me a feeling that, as much as this game was announced 4 years ago, we're still a while out yet. Undead Labs, obviously the developers of the first two State of Decays, I think they were batting above their average in terms of the popularity of the game versus the AAA-ness of the title. And Xbox have a great kind of range of developers under their stable now, from the smaller teams all the way up to the big AAA studios. And it'd be interesting to see if State of Decay 3 is kind of trying to be elevated from maybe AA to more of a AAA style game. But again, not my style of game. And I'm not 100% sold on what was shown here will be super reflective of what we end up playing, but I could be wrong.
But were you sold on the next game that they announced, which was a third-party title, and this was Dragon Age: The Veilguard? New Dragon Age.
I'm not... Again, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier around JRPGs being more my style. And we'll talk about Fable a little bit later, but this one kind of got mixed reception from my understanding. I think obviously BioWare have gone through a lot and a lot of change, and there's a lack of trust, I think, in BioWare after Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda. I have heard positive things from people who have previewed the game at Summer Games Fest, so there is that. But I think the initial reaction to the trailer, I think purely based on art design, was mixed at best. But this isn't a Josh game, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have all the answers if it looks good or whatever. So I'll defer to you.
No, that's all right. I know that a lot of people do they want the Dragon Age to be in the similar vein of other RPGs, where it's like a little bit more realistic in terms of the graphic design and textures and that sort of thing, whereas it looks like a little bit cartoony. And so that's something that people have to get over. Not everything's going to look like the original Dragon Age games or even Inquisition. I'm interested to see how it performs, especially that it was announced for as part of the Xbox showcase rather than the Summer Games, which I would have thought this would have been the sort of game to go onto that. So Xbox has got the advertising. Actually. So I'm interested to see kind of how much it's tied into that kind of Xbox marketing, and whether or not we're going to see it continuously marketed for Xbox, but also available on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So that was another thing. The next game that came up was, I guess, following along from the television show that has been fairly successful on Amazon
This is
Prime.
just before you get into it. This is the Josh not interested section of games. So if you hear for the next few games that these aren't Josh games, well,
here we
let
go.
Sean take the mantle. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh doesn't like first-party Xbox games. Wow, what a surprise.
What a fanboy. Gave it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah. But Fallout 76 players are happy now that Fallout 76 is seen as a game and not a mess like when it was first launched. I actually got rid of my copy. I played it for about 15 minutes. I was like, this is trash when I first got it, because there was no NPCs, no nothing. You couldn't do anything. That's all changed now. Apparently the game is very busy. Almost, it's getting to levels of like Elder Scrolls Online sort of levels in a sense, from what I've heard. But yeah, the only content that they gave a couple of different content pieces, like a new location and new missions, that sort of thing, which look cool. And the fact that you'll be able to play as a ghoul character next year, that's all right. I'm not sure why you'd have that. Like that kind of felt tacked on a little bit. They announced the effectively an expansion, and then oh, by the way, next year you can play as a ghoul. It's like
that's purely because of the Amazon show, right? Because
it has to be.
that character was super popular in there.
Yeah, it has to be.
Come on, even I know that.
It's
Xbox fan over
Yeah,
here.
but still, like it feels tacked on. Like you could surprise everyone with a. Oh, by the way, this is happening today or something like that. You don't need to tell us. It's happening next year, so we got to
Play
wait
with the
another
guy with
7
no
months.
nose.
Yeah, in 7 months' time, I can play as a guy with no nose. Cool.
Fantastic.
Like, I don't. Yeah. Anyway, the next one was the Starfield DLC, Shattered Space, which looked very interesting, and it actually made me make sure that Starfield was updated on my Xbox, ready to go.
60 frames, yeah.
Yep. So I played a little bit of Starfield, but as with a lot of these games, which demand a lot of your time, I get a little bit kind of like self-conscious about how much time I'll be spending playing it. It's a little bit trying to find the right word, but yeah,
It's like you're having a midlife crisis over here, thinking, how much time have I wasted playing games? Yeah,
it's not even wasted. It's like, okay, I'm going to play Starfield and finish it, and it's going to take me 3 weeks. And it's like, okay, cool. But I can also play these 4 other games and finish them all within, a day.
I love that. I love knowing that I've got the next few weeks set. But no release date. Set the launch in 2024. I alluded to this earlier. I wonder why.
Yeah, I reckon we sit on that one there for a little bit and see what happens. World of Warcraft, The War Within, got a release trailer as well with a release date of August. So for anybody who's playing World of Warcraft, great. I actually thought that we'd see some information about it coming to console because, well, it is on console, right?
No, it's still
it's not.
just PC, and I think too soon if it was going to happen, and I think there's a lot of reasons.
The game only came out in what, 2001, 2002?
Yeah, but I think we're too new into the acquisition that we would see it, and then I don't know how well the game would work on console. Just
keyboard support,
maybe with keyboard
easy.
support.
Yeah, 100%. You do keyboard and mouse support, which you've already got that available. Like that's already there, so that would be the way to go. But I'd be interested to see what happens with The War Within. Like World of Warcraft and Destiny 2 to an extent, like some of these MMOs that have been going for a couple of years, or in World of Warcraft's case, a couple of decades, it's kind of, when do you get the feeling that these games are actually going to end?
And people stop playing and
that's the thing. Like I know Destiny 2 at the moment, for example, the Final Shape, which was the recent expansion, which came out last week, that's kind of seen as not quite the end game of Destiny 2, but close to.
Yeah. I think there's even a tease in there for something, maybe Destiny 3 in there. So
yeah, but Bungie's working on their other online shooter, which Marathon, which was a 1990s game, and now they're using it in 2020s technology. So I'm not sure if we're going to see a Destiny 3 anytime soon. Although I'm not going to talk about Destiny while we're talking about World of Warcraft. Let's move on. The next one, which I actually thought was interesting. This is an interesting game. We're back.
Josh is back in the room now.
We're back to Josh games now.
Yeah.
And so this one, Claire Obscure, I think it is, or Obscure. Expedition
Obscure.
33. This looked fascinating, didn't it, Josh?
Yeah, a small team. I think there are about 40 developers. Ben Starr is starring as the main character. And for those who don't know who Ben Starr is, he's Clive Rosfield from Final Fantasy 16. And this was a really cool trailer. First in concept, like the whole idea of like this villainous character that every year paints a number and then people of that age just simply vanish. And then there's this expedition of people going out to stop this entity. The style of game is like really cool. It's like a modern take of a traditional turn-based JRPG. It's not really a JRPG, but you know what I mean in terms of spirit. But has a little bit of, I would say, Persona style design in terms of the combat and the menus and things like that. How things are kind of popping up on screen, very Persona like. But then it's also got some real time elements where you're actively dodging moves, blocking, parrying, timing your
Adding to
attacks, free
combos, yeah.
aim. Yeah, so I always, to me, I think that's the sweet spot where old school meets new school, right? Where I don't think there's the hardcore JRP base that will grind and love that style of stuff, right? But I think most people that aren't those people that like the genre to some degree are more short on time, don't want to waste time grinding, want a game that as much as it is still turn based, it has those AAA elements and is a bit more interactive.
Action oriented.
Yeah, so you're still getting the turn-based stuff, but it's more action-oriented, exactly to your point. So, and there is games that are doing that. Like I spoke about Sea of Stars that I'm playing at the start of the show. Like that has some of that in there where as you're hitting your enemy, if you tap X as the attack hits, you do a double hit and things like that, blocking. But this is taking it onto the large scale. So this game's coming to Game Pass, as well as PlayStation and PC. I thought this looked great. Like, I'm going to wait for review scores. It is a small team, a new game. But in terms of announcements, this was one of the new announcements that was like, wow, this got my attention. So be keeping an eye out. It's coming out sometime in 2025. So
I liked how it looked, and I liked the fact that it did have some of the gameplay as well in the trailer, rather than just a cinematic trailer. It had like the HUD, and you can kind of see a little bit of the action. So I really appreciated that. And the fact that it is a turn-based game, we're not seeing a lot of like first-party, large AAA turn-based games. Like, yeah, you've got your Civilization and stuff that we mentioned earlier, but you're not really getting these sorts of games unless you're going that JRPG route with your Final Fantasy and stuff.
Persona, obviously, ReFantazio, which is from the Persona team, but they're like the only ones really doing AAA turn-based RPG.
Yeah.
Not asymmetrical or anything like that in terms of just pure JRPG. There is others I'm sure I'm missing, right? There's we're rumored to get a Final Fantasy IX remake that's going to be like that too, but I think we're not seeing a lot of these titles, and there's that hardcore old school Final Fantasy base that whinge that the games are now real-time action games. Well, you better show up for something like this, because you're not going to get this too often, and this game doesn't do too well. Obviously, you purchase it based on quality and all that, but if the game's of quality and doesn't do too well, that's why we're not getting a turn-based Final Fantasy game. So
yeah. The next game was also another one that has got me a little bit excited, and that was South of Midnight. So we've actually got to see some gameplay regarding this rather than just a cinematic trailer. This is another game which will release in 2025. It does not have a release date. I'm okay with games coming next year that don't have a release date. I don't need to know that it's coming in February or whatever. I don't care. If it's coming 2025, it's coming 2025. It's coming 2024. Yeah, I'd like to know, but not 100%. I'm happy that this is another game that's going to be coming to Game Pass, like as well as Expedition 33. Like, these are the sorts of games that you would preload, get ready to go, and so you've got like maybe a game every couple of weeks raring to go, which are all different and interesting and unique. And this one definitely looks unique.
Yeah, it's so first party Compulsion Games. So this was part of the team buyout from 2018.
So We Happy Few, and what else did they do?
There was a PS4 launch game that I'm blanking the name of, but We Happy Few was their last release. But yeah, this looked really cool. It actually gave me. Did you ever play Kenya Bridge of Spirits on PS5?
No, I saw a really whack speed run of it. That was about it.
It gave me similar vibes in terms of third-person platforming action. Actually, similar tone in terms of like, looks like you're like cleansing the world or cleansing some sort of world from some sort of virus. Not like a Last of Us virus, but some sort of thing that's malice that's taken over. I like the stop motion stuff. It kind of looked like the game was running in 60 frames, but maybe the main character was running at 30 or 15, 20 frames per second. So that kind of gives you that into the Spider-Verse style, where like Miles Morales was running a little bit slower in that. So yeah, it looked really good. It kind of gave me like I said, Kenya Bridge of Spirit vibes, very PS3, 360 generation, and that's not a hit. Don't mean to offend anybody by that. It's come up every week now. But yeah, this is one I'm excited for. So keeping an eye out for South of Midnight for sure.
And you're also keeping an eye on the next game that they announced directly afterwards, which was Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, which had a trailer as well as gameplay on Xbox's showcase, which I thought was
Konami's,
interesting.
spreading the love. Well, they announced Delta at PlayStation Showcase last year. We got the CGI trailer where you kind of go through the bog and then Snake walks out. But then, yeah, they've shown a trailer since, I think, at a State of Play and now here on the Xbox show. So it doesn't seem like maybe they don't have a marketing arrangement. Maybe they're doing their own marketing.
Well, they're not doing it at the
it's
Summer
kind of,
Games Fest.
well, we kind of half predicted that, right? We didn't know, based on Jeff's relationship with Mr. Kojima, would he allow this game to be shown there? But man, I've already pre-ordered. It's funny, I went on a bit of a pre-ordering spree
Oh no.
this morning, and I'm like, Astrobot, Alan Wake, Metal Gear, Assassin's Creed. Like, it was just like a list of games. I'm like, I know I'm gonna play these. I'd rather just have them pre-ordered, get the editions that I want. But Metal Gear Solid 3, again, having the conversation with my uncle today, we live in a world where Josh's 3 favorite games of all time have been remade in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Final Fantasy VII, Last of Us Part 1, and now Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, in particular, 3.
So now you're waiting on Sly Raccoon, yeah?
Well, and we just had Sly Raccoon 1, the Thievius Raccoonus, released on the PlayStation Store as a PS2 classic, which $14, I'm there, baby. So what is going on? Like, something's odd because everything that I love is here and coming back in some degree. But Metal Gear Solid looked fantastic. I was skeptical in the team making it and Konami doing it without Kojima being there, but it is very clear based on the gameplay shown that this is still very much the bones of the original game. In terms of, like, even some of the jank in the animation, like Snake running towards the camera and then picking up the bazooka and doing that, like, that is pretty much one-to-one Metal Gear Solid 3. So from my understanding, it looks like all they're doing is taking that game, modernizing the gameplay in terms of controlling Snake. It has both the classic and the modern controls, so you can have the kind of top-down view or a more traditional modern third-person action game, which is probably how I'll play it. So more similar to like Metal Gear Solid 5. And everything else is staying the same. The voice acting is mostly the same. It's beat by beat Metal Gear Solid 3. So at first I was kind of like, oh, how do I feel about that? But I think this is the best possible way to approach it without Kojima. You don't want to change anything because the fan base will lose their mind. But just modernize it, make it look pretty, make it easier to play in terms of hands on sticks and how it feels in your hands. And man, this is a dream come true. Like, I can't. I pre-ordered the collector's edition that's available here in Australia straight away. And yeah, for me, this is like game of the show. Like,
did you pre-order it?
Solid 3.
Did you pre-order it for Xbox though?
No, PS5.
Yeah. Always got to check.
Gotta give Jim Ryan that check somehow, right?
Somehow. Now, the next game was announced. Well, it's not really a game. It was more an update, and that was for Sea of Thieves, which is still going strong. And it's got new content that's coming in July 25th, so it is coming fairly recent.
Also on PlayStation.
Also on PlayStation. Season 13, they're getting it. Yeah. So, anyway, with Sea of Thieves, they've had a couple of really big kind of updates over the last few years. They had the Pirates of the Caribbean, they had Monkey Island. Now we're getting into more, okay, you can be evil. So they're changing it up a little bit. It'd be interesting to see kind of more of those story-driven, like with other IPs. I actually really enjoy those tall tales because, it's a story from, another game that you had a connection to, and now you're able to explore those same characters in Sea of Thieves. I'm more interested in those sorts of updates rather than these sorts of ones. But look, it's a big game. There's a lot of stuff to do. And the fact that you can now go on servers just for yourself and your friends, so there's no PvP as an option, there are different ways to play Sea of Thieves, and that's great.
Well, you just got to think. Every Xbox showcase moving forward, you can lock in Fallout 76, you can lock in Sea of Thieves, and Call of Duty. those three games will be there for the rest of the time.
And potentially Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, and Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, those four games.
Now, this game that came up after Sea of Thieves, I think you're very excited about this one, and that's Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, which is out next month, July 18th.
Keeping an eye out on this one. This is one I'll pick up based on reviews.
It's on Game Pass.
It's not one that... It's on Game Pass, definitely, so I can play it on PC, also on PS5, so I'll probably play it there. But this is an action Souls-like game. It's been like shown for years, and yeah, definitely one to keep your eye on. Based on reviews, though, I think I'll pick this one up.
Now, I'm interested to see, because it's been described as Souls-like. Now, Josh, do you know the difference between Souls-like and Souls-light?
To be fair, I think the term Souls-like and Souls-light are used way too often for games that shouldn't necessarily have that moniker. And it's usually done for a few reasons. It's either level design, difficulty, or the idea that when you die, you lose your souls and you have to collect those souls. You know, that style of game. But we need to really come up with a different term, because some of these games, like we spoke about Phantom Blade Zero, even Stellar Blade, which launched earlier this year that I played, were all Souls-like games, but were not Souls games. So what happened to just third-person action game? Like, not everything... it's just one of those things that we haven't got like a clear... It's kind of like Metroidvania, right? Where a game could be a Metroidvania, it could be a 2D Metroidvania, it could be a 3D game where you get power-ups and then you use those power-ups to unlock different areas of the maps that you couldn't access before. That's technically a Metroidvania. I think it's just like an easy thing. But when you say, oh, this game's a Souls-like, it's like, well, what do you mean? Is it plays like a Souls-like, it's the level design's like a Souls-like, or am I losing souls and leveling up based on the souls that I collect and all that? I think for this game in particular, it's using Souls-like in the terms of one-on-one combat, parry, stamina. But that's really it.
Yeah. So I tried to do a little bit of research on it because I keep seeing it, as well as like roguelite and roguelike, similar sort of things. And I think I've worked out exactly what the difference is.
Can I guess? Because I don't know the
answer. Yeah, go.
Is rogue, using that example, roguelite, the sense that it's procedurally generated, but when you die, you don't necessarily lose all the stuff that you acquired from that run. You might keep some of it. So think Returnal, right? Where you get those orb things and you can kind of upgrade some key things and you go into the next round stronger than you were in the first one. Where roguelike is more... You die, you start again, you die, you start again, procedurally generated. Is that kind of right?
You're pretty much on the money. So if it's a like, then you lose everything. When you die, you lose everything. You start again, you lose everything. If it's a light, there are meta upgrades that you can purchase that are in the background that give you a boost or a bonus each time you go back into it.
Yeah.
So you might lose everything and start from the start, but you had enough, you were able to buy this power up, which will, work for every new life that you have. And then you can build on that skill tree or whatever it is. So that is a light, because you're getting the same experience. However, there is still that progression that's going to push you through the game. So the fact that this is described as an explosive Souls-like tells me that you start from scratch. But then,
you watch the gameplay and you're like, this is not a Souls game.
Exactly. So, anyway, I just wanted to have that little session about that. The game looks great.
No, I'm there, man. I think that it's deterring a lot of people from playing games they probably would have played based on Souls being added to it.
Well, on that sort of description, I would be more suited to play Souls-light games, because I know that eventually I'm going to be able to overcome these challenging objectives because I've got bonuses and power-ups that are going to help me through it. When
Yeah.
it's a like, I know that on a technical basis, I have to grind through, skill. And sometimes, yes, issue is a problem for a lot of people, and that's where people. That's why people don't play Dark Souls and that sort of stuff because it's too hard or whatever it is. But like the light ones, I feel better doing that because I know that that's a better use of my time.
You feel better now? You got that out of your system?
Yes.
All right, we're
And
back.
now I can get the next part out of my system. Perfect Dark. We saw gameplay of Perfect Dark. It is a real game that is happening. It had the initiative. It had Crystal Dynamics. Perfect Dark is happening, Josh. It's happening. Do you remember Perfect Dark?
I do. This is one that was announced a long, long time ago. This is another one, though, not to be a negative Nancy on really on this game and one other. So far, my hit rate's been fairly positive. This gave me very much cinematic gameplay simulated. And what I mean simulated, because people are like, what do you mean simulated? Where it's a trailer that looks like it's gameplay, but it's actually not played on sticks. It's like built to look like gameplay. Maybe I'm wrong. But this wasn't the game I was expecting. I don't know. I've heard mixed feelings about. I think some people are really happy to see this game and see it in motion. I don't know. Like I'm watching the gameplay now, right? Like Joanna's going through a door.
Yeah.
Now in the trailer or in the gameplay, she's actively the camera pans down. She opens the door. The camera pans up. Is that really going to happen every time I open the door? You know what I mean? Like there's just certain things that I look at it and go, I don't know if this is actually what the game's going to look like when I'm playing it, and I hope this isn't an example of game looking too good to be true, and then when you actually get your hands on it, it's like a downgrade of what you thought the game would be. And I say that not because it's an Xbox game, but because of the way that the game's being developed and who it's being developed with. Like with Crystal being involved, obviously there's the initiative with this, which has had its own kind of ups and downs, and a lot of the leads leave. But I don't know. This kind of looks like something that was thrown together more recently, and it's more of a tone setter for what they're trying to achieve with the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like they're trying to set expectations with a cinematic trailer, so that way you have an understanding of what you're going into with the game, and also okay, well, it's going to look a little bit like this. It's not ready yet.
Yeah.
We're far from there. However, this is like a small section, probably in like stage 1 or stage 2 of the game or something like that, and this is what we think it's going to look like.
Yeah. That's what I got from it. I might be completely wrong, but I don't know, just something. It doesn't even look like it looks too good to be true. It's not because of that. It's just something about the way it looks. It just looks like it's not necessarily one-for-one gameplay. I don't know. It's kind of a weird one for me to explain.
Well, if that trailer is how it's going to look, or at least similar to how it's going to look, I'm happy. Plus, it's coming to Game Pass.
Yeah.
Like, I think we do forget that we don't actually have to shell out money for this if we've already got a Game Pass subscription.
Why it's so sustainable.
It's basically free.
Oh God.
Now, we are getting or retelling or whatever they want to call it now of Age of Mythology. I'm excited. This is where you went to go to the toilet, yeah?
Yeah, this is the coffee segment. I'll come back a bit later on.
Okay, this is the coffee segment. All right, I'll control the narrative from here. Age of Mythology Retold is coming September release date, so September 4, coming to Game Pass, Series X, PC, yada yada. I'm happy that this game is coming. I thought it was Age of Mythology when I was watching some of the gameplay, but I'm like, oh, there's a lot of like, gods and creatures and monsters, and you didn't really get that in the original Age of Mythology. You had some of the units, but it was more like powers that you would use rather than like utilizing a lot of gods. So the fact that they're saying it's retold, they're basically saying, look, we're going to try and steer clear from like an Age of Empires clone with some gods. We're going to try and make it its own like identity effectively. So I'm interested in Age of Mythology. I will definitely play it and play the campaign because I did enjoy this game when it first came out. and I have been waiting years. Another one, if they want to do it, the one of the original game designers of the first Age of Empires broke off and did a game called Empire Earth. I'd like to see that remade as well, but we're never going to get that. Just wanted to put that out there. We won't get it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Moving on, while Josh is still drinking his coffee during the showcase, Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred expansion, which this trailer looked like, this is the first trailer that they had for the entire showcase. It said that there were some scenes that are gruesome. And
this one got my attention. I was like, what was this? It was funny. I missed the start of the trailer, and I thought this was a CG trailer for Assassin's Creed when I saw I thought this was the main character from the new Assassin's Creed game.
Oh, no.
Obviously, the female actress that's in that game, right? Because she's of Asian persuasion. Can I say that? And I was watching the trailer. And I'm like, oh, it's a CG trailer for Assassin's Creed. And then the trailer started going, and I'm like, well, hold on, what is happening? And then it just breaks down to this demonic torture porn.
It's all in the shadows, man. It's all in the shadows.
I was like, okay, this is definitely not Assassin's Creed.
But I'm like looking at that. It doesn't quite make me want to go out and play Diablo 4 straight away, but it's a reminder that Diablo 4 is there on Game Pass, and there's an expansion, and it's coming in October, just in time for Halloween. So anyway, that'll look nice. So might get to that. I do want to hear your thoughts on this next game, which potentially piqued your interest, and that was Fable. We got some gameplay.
We did. We
Perfect Dark, Fable. They're rolling with the punches.
Yeah, man. Like, this is the thing. There was, like I said, there was about 30 games shown here. And there's probably 10 to 15 that I'm excited for, and there was some that I don't have a real strong history for Fable, right? And that's for a few reasons. Like I said, even with what we were talking about. I was talking about not liking the European
third-person action adventure Western RPG.
Yeah, the Western RPG thing, right? So it hasn't really been my style. I have this thing. I have a weird thing with fantasy where I don't like fantasy that's got comedy elements in it. Like, I kind of always like.
Oh no, you won't like Fable then.
Yeah, I'm more of a dark fantasy guy. I don't know, just that the whole British sense of humor thing isn't really my cup of tea. But I mean, this is being made by a studio is it Turn 10 that's making this one, right?
The Forza
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. This looks good. I mean, like, the trailer looked fun.
And Playground Games.
Playground Games. It's running on that engine. Yeah, again, I think this is a lot of in-game stuff, but look, Xbox have done this interesting approach, which I definitely think has worked in their favor in this sense, right? They've got the gambit of stuff. They've got the stuff that's coming in 2024 where we're seeing a lot more of those games. We're seeing some stuff for 2025 where we're getting hints, right? And then we're seeing things that are a bit further out. Like, I think Fable, I think Perfect Dark are two prime examples of games where I think these are still further out than people are thinking.
You don't think they're late next year? Because they say 2025.
Yeah, definitely Fable will be more likely to be next year. Perfect Dark, I think, is even beyond next year, more 2026. But I think it's interesting the fact that we've seen Fable a few times now. We had the initial kind of CG trailer. There was the last year's trailer, which was the one where we saw the initial main character and a kind of glimpse of gameplay. And then we've got this. It's interesting that we haven't seen it in motion. Like, really. We kind of get cuts of the main character hitting an enemy with a sword or throwing a fireball, but there isn't like I don't know, even a portion of this trailer where you're seeing the character in motion.
So you wanted more like a South of Midnight sort of showing.
Yeah, look, to me, I think the perfect trailer, like, I love demos where they do the whole South of Midnight thing, where it's like, oh, cool, we're seeing this game, there's a trailer, and then like the camera pans out, and then it's the main character, and you kind of see the game in motion.
It's a cutscene, a bit of the game, a cutscene, and then end it.
Yeah, and you actually see the game in motion, right? Um, we haven't seen that for this game. And so it's kind of going, again, it's not a game that I'm super interested in. So I'm trying not to be super harsh
Yeah.
on a game that I wouldn't play even if I saw gameplay for. But I think this is one where I think if we saw some in motion gameplay, it would have helped the way that I have felt about the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. Like I saw like while watching the trailer, you see a couple of like the spells and stuff, and it does look like it's bringing back some of the older like magic that you can do in the older games. What I'm interested to see is how far away is it from the original Fable, and further, how far away is it from Black and White, which was Peter Molyneux's game before Fable hit it big, because that kind of had the alignment factor, the good and the evil. At the moment, this is feeling like you can be the hero, whatever, you need to be the hero of Albion. Like, it seems very, you're playing that character, this girl. You're not playing as like an avatar of yourself, of whether or not you want to be good, you want to be evil, like the alignment system, if there's any of that sort of thing. We don't have any of that. So it's almost like a reimagining of Fable as a fantasy game, but not necessarily as Fable in like the Fable world of Albion, and how your actions and choices affect the world. Like, you see a little bit of it, but not as much as I would have liked.
I'll just say this, like, my overall want and expectations for game announcements is first showing is in-engine trailer. Second showing is trailer with gameplay and hopefully a release window. And then final trailer with gameplay or a live showing release date and the game's out. I think that's like a perfect approach for me, right? Where the first trailer is kind of like, oh, we're getting this game and it's super exciting, right? We'll talk about Gears later. Like that. That's perfect for the first reveal of that game. But I do think the second time we see a game, we should be seeing it in motion. Specifically a game that was announced 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that's I think overall such a really positive show. There was a lot of really good stuff in there. But, putting my critical hat on, there is that where I'm like, well, it's good that we saw Fable. It's good that we saw Perfect Dark, but I mean, not so much Perfect Dark, because I could be wrong on that. That could have been actual gameplay. But Fable in particular, I think we should have seen gameplay.
Yeah.
More. Yeah.
We are going to move on a little bit.
Yeah.
Fragpunk. This was the one game where I was like, oh, great. 5v5 online hero shooter. I do like the idea where you've got to change the rules of the gameplay, like in terms of like with the cards and stuff, like ability cards. But otherwise, this looked like a game that I'm probably not going to play.
We've already got a Concord.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like every showcase needs a Concord.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing we'll move right along unless you have anything you want to say.
Yeah, I've got nothing to say for the next few, to be honest.
Oh, man, you're missing out. Winter Burrow. This one actually looks really good. So like a little survival game where you've got to kind of, build up the old family home that's been destroyed and kind of work out what's going on with your family and stuff. It looks like a cozy game. It looks like something that you might play for, for a day and then finish it. So I'm interested to see it, and also the fact that it's on Game Pass, I'm more than likely going to give it a go. Mixtape, which looked interesting, especially considering it was done. Like, it looked like it was a Life is Strange sort of game, which,
coming of tale story.
Yeah, exactly. Where it was like you make decisions and everything's based on the music, and that's in the background, and kind of like it's story driven. So almost like Open Roads that I played this week. But that was then followed up by Life is Strange. So I was like, okay, so we're getting two similar-ish games, but one's more like storytelling and music, and the other one is more time-skipping powers. I don't know. I like the look of them. I'll probably give them a go anyway, but it's not something that I'll be writing home about. Definitely.
Yep. October 29th.
Yep. It's on Game Pass, so at least give it a go because it's on Game Pass.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Life is Strange is not, but Mixtape is.
Might have to cough up, Sean. Can't get them all for free.
Oh, it'll come. It'll come to Game Pass. It'll come to Game Pass. Um, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Were you excited by this one? They look
Oh,
so
boy.
they look so good, but I've no interest.
Like I said, games for some people, not for all.
Well, this is your racing game for the Xbox
Yeah.
showcase
Yeah.
because there was no Forza.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. No Halo either. But we did get Gears, so we'll talk about that later. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
We're back.
We're back. Josh is back. I'm happy with this trailer and the fact that it's made by the same guys who do Wolfenstein. I'm like,
The German fetish. Yeah.
okay, yep, this is cool. I know what to expect. I don't even need to see too much gameplay, if that. Like, yeah, when it's meant to be seen a little bit, but I was like, yeah, no, it's machine games. I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. It's funny, like Troy Baker does a pretty good job as Indy. I do think the trailer was a bit weird. I think it was more. I liked it because I'm an indie fan. I actually like the original trilogy, so it definitely gave me the tone and the sense of humor that comes from those games.
Did it look like a couple of minutes of like a movie, but animated?
Yeah. I will say though, for non-indie fans, I don't know how great this trailer showed. Like I got it because I like indie and I like the sense of humor, I like the timing, I like the comedy action. Like I get it, but I wonder how this game hit for people who are not indie fans. But for me, like I'm buying this one day one. Actually, I'll play it on Game Pass.
Yeah,
This is one it's
play it on Game Pass.
This is one that isn't so far coming to PlayStation that I'm excited for. So I'll be playing this on PC day one.
And it is coming this year, apparently.
Yeah, no
Yep.
release date, which is weird.
No release date. The next one was Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers, which is coming to Game Pass.
Wu Fong, now Wu Chang.
This is Wu Chang. It's coming to Game Pass as well on day one. It is launching on PS5 and Epic Store and Steam and everything else. But it will be on Game Pass. This sounds like your type of game, huh?
Here we go with the Chinese style action RPG with Souls elements. Quite a few of these games coming out. We've spoken about a few just today. I mean, this is another one, right? If the reviews are positive, I'll pick this one up. I've got to say though, there is a lot of
The State of Play had a couple as well. They had their own like little Chinese part of their showcase. A few weeks back. So now we've got Xbox has got a couple as well, and Summer Games Fest had a couple. So
Phantom Blade. Yep,
we're starting to see
Wulong. No, not Wulong.
Whoa.
Oh my God, Wolong, Wulong, Wu Chang.
Oh my gosh.
Do
Okay.
you see why I'm having issues here?
You have issues. Okay. Avowed. We see a little bit more of it. It is launching this year. It is coming to Game Pass. I'm very intrigued by it, and the more we see about it, like everyone's thinking it's going to be another Elder Scrolls game, but it looks like it's going to be something a little bit more twisted, which looks cool.
Yeah, it's in the Pillars of Eternity world, which I don't know how much you really need to know that world to enjoy the game. It is Obsidian; they're pretty well known to do these Western RPGs. Apparently, I think the release date was leaked via GameStop.
GameStop Brazil.
Yeah, which I think it was October or November. So it's definitely apparently coming this year. I think my guess is just Xbox will do a developer direct maybe later this year, and we see Indie Avowed, and they'll get release dates with Shattered Space being there as well.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't a Josh game, but very similar to the first-person shooter discussion we had with Doom about me wanting to try out different genres that I don't typically enjoy. Not even that I don't typically enjoy, that I don't typically play. Maybe I do try one of these games out. I don't know where I start. Do I start with Avowed? Do I do Starfield? Like, I don't think I'll want to go back to like an old Fallout because I'll probably just get based on how old.
Did you play Elder Scrolls?
No, that's the thing.
I
was a PS3 owner,
Yeah.
right? So Skyrim didn't work on PS3.
Yeah, I know. Do just start with Skyrim. Actually, I just finished because like last week we were talking. I finished Oblivion, the expansion. I went through and did the expansion missions, and like my old character from like 2012 or whatever it was, or 2011. I would say if you're going to get into those sorts of like Western RPGs, just start with Skyrim
I
and
don't
just
think I
go
can deal
from
with the
there.
jank. I don't know if I can do it.
It's best way to start, mate. Got to start.
We'll
You got
see.
to you got to wake up. Oh, you've woken up on the
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
cart. The next game, Atomfall. I was surprised by this one. This one actually looked really cool. Did you
Yeah.
did you get excited by this one? It's coming to Game Pass as well.
No, 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 not for me.
Ah, it's the Sniper Elite team as well,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
Sniper Elite has had a whole bunch of games come to Game Pass. I think they've had nearly all of them come to Game Pass because
yeah.
they're games that my dad actually plays, and he loves Sniper Elite games. So the fact that Atom Falls is coming, if it's first person or even if it's third person, I reckon it's the sort of game that he might give a go. So like my dad's gonna play it. Well, I've got to play it. So
Mm.
I'm excited for that one there. Another one, Assassin's Creed. We saw a little bit more about that. We both got Assassin's Creed Shadows pre-ordered, so
Yep.
we don't really need to talk too much more about that one there. Stalker 2. Have we still got Josh or
No, no, this segment was more like, yeah, this is interesting. Like, obviously, Assassin's Creed is something I want to play. Yeah, Stalker 2, another one that's been revealed for a long time. Obviously, this one's a bit of a prickly development cycle. Like, the team are in Ukraine, so they were
yeah?
literally in a war. But Stalker's a pretty big franchise on PC, so yeah, it's coming to console, Game Pass, September 5th. I mean, I might pick this one up, but I'll see how I go. There's a lot of games everywhere at the moment, so
The fact that we got a September 5 release date and we've got a few 2024 games that don't have a release date, that tells me that they are October, November.
yeah.
Like maybe a late September, if that. But I reckon the rest of October, November. Like it's leading towards that. Um, Now they did mention the consoles for like 20 seconds, which you're not going to buy any of them, are you?
We still have console. No, I'm actually
Yeah.
going to hold. I was actually thinking about. I think off the back of this conference, I was like, maybe I do get an Xbox and just kind of
Ooh.
support their games
Okay.
there.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
But there's obviously rumors in 2026 that they're going to do a handheld and maybe start next gen early. And then it also depends how things pan out between now and 2026. Like if we get to a point where all the ABK games, the ZeniMax games, and maybe some of the Xbox Studio games are coming to PlayStation, I don't mind paying, right? Because I do buy physical. I like the collection. I like owning games. So if I can play all these games um, on the console of my choice and play them the way that I want to, I will just buy the games there. So depending on how things go over the next 2 years, um,
Well, Phil Spencer
personally,
says that's okay.
yeah, and I think it is right. I think we will see a lot come to all platforms, and it's purely just gone to the logistics of having ABK. I think the cost of running, 20,000 people is a lot more than when you had 5 studios, and is a lot more when you brought ZeniMax, right? Like it's just they've grown so big in terms of teams and people and the way how much games are costing, and they've got a subscription service where games are selling less because of that. I don't care what anyone says, that is the case. I mean, like Sean, you're not going to buy any of these games that are Game Pass games, right? You're just going to
No.
use your subscription to play them, and that's totally
Yep.
fine. But I think the economics of that is going to mean that there is going to be more of a quicker push to get these games on multiplat. I mean, we've seen it. Like it went from, ZeniMax is an acquisition to bring games exclusive to Xbox and to places where Game Pass exists. That was the quote from Phil Spencer back then. And then it's just these 4 games, only these 4 games. Do not expect more. This isn't a change of strategy. And that was what, a few months ago?
Yep.
And now we're literally got Phil Spencer on stage saying, we're doing more of this, expect more. Like, It's coming.
Well, look,
So
I think it makes a lot of sense because you're either getting people to purchase the game on another console, or they're most likely, if they have an Xbox or a PC, they'll get Game Pass. And I still look at Game Pass as, it's $16 a month for Game Pass Ultimate. I think it's about 15.95, I believe it is. And so,
it's still a good price.
fifteen
Expect that to go up
95.
before Call of Duty comes out, though.
Yeah, but that's still over 12 months. That's $191.40.
Yeah.
That's two games.
Yeah.
That's
the thing. As a value judgment, and as a person who doesn't need to actually care about economics of things, I mean, if Sony did it, I would do it.
Yeah.
Like it's too good to not do it. If you have an Xbox and you're not on Game Pass, it doesn't even make sense.
That's Gears of War. That's Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Hell, you can throw in literally everything else for free, and I'm still doing better on Game
Exactly.
Pass.
It just ultimately goes down to how you play games, how you want to own games, if you want to own them or not. And maybe that's the middle ground that we spoke about a few weeks back, where it's all right. If you want Game Pass, the numbers aren't where they need to be. So to sustain that, we need to sell these games elsewhere as well. And then the draw on Xbox is day and date Game Pass.
Yeah.
So be it.
And as someone who doesn't give a shit about the console wars, like I'm totally okay with that, because if you want to purchase the game for $110, by all means, I'm happy over here on Game Pass.
Exactly. And I'm on the other end of it, where it's like, I'm not doing it to give money and spend money and support the devs and all that. It's more the way that I play games.
It's convenience for you.
Yeah, I'd rather pick up my game, pay $100 or whatever it is, go home, play that game for 2-3 weeks, get the enjoyment out of it, put it on the shelf, and I've got it there. If that doesn't mean anything to you, fine.
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah.
Now, to also answer the question that I asked you, I'm not going to be upgrading my Xbox Series X anytime soon.
No, what for?
Yeah,
Like,
and
what are you
also,
gonna do?
I'm looking at the rumors of the handheld, and I'm like, same as the PlayStation Portal. It's not marketed at me.
No.
It's marketed at someone like yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the thing that you'd be holding out for information on before even considering getting an Xbox console anyway. Because if you can get a handheld Xbox, well, you have that right next to your PlayStation Portal, and instead of having your PC or whatever on, you can sit on the couch and play it with a
100%.
podcast.
And if it's got the ability
TV.
to dock to a TV, and even if it is underpowered,
but
like
that's now we're talking Switch kind of areas.
Phil Spencer in that same IGN interview spoke about a handheld, and he did say that he couldn't say much, obviously, but he said if Microsoft ever was going to do it, or if there was one, he imagined it being where games are there on the actual device as opposed to streaming or Portal, right? So, I mean, at that point, you probably could get it to dock somewhat. I mean, like, as much as there's a lot of doom and gloom for Xbox, right? I don't think we've shared that. Like, I've said from the start that this multi-platform approach, if anything, ensures the success of Xbox and its longevity, because it ensures that their games are selling, it ensures that their teams are making money, it ensures that Microsoft and Microsoft Gaming is profitable, and we see these teams continue to make games. And then for the Xbox community, it ensures that they get these games on Game Pass. It's a win-win for everyone. Everyone gets to play, everyone's happy, and you get to play the way that you want. And then if you're Xbox, you'd go, all right, well, our console has diminished, right? We're only selling the same 20 million that we sold last generation, or the 30 million, whatever it is. But maybe we can differentiate what the hardware is. Maybe we don't necessarily have, maybe we don't have the big Series X console as our flagship. Maybe it is the Series S and the handheld, and it's this lower entry point to games. You know?
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
I also think, like, and we will move on to the last game in a second. But I also think that there's more of a magnifying glass on Microsoft and Xbox anyway, because a lot of the media for video games comes out of the US, and Xbox is in the backyard, whereas PlayStation, Nintendo, they're all Japan. It's all external. So I do think that there is a little bit of like a negative echo chamber kind of that does happen because it is westernized rather than not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that. I think it's purely the fact that most, like PlayStation is the bigger brand, so most of these media people are probably playing on PlayStation. And I don't think Xbox as a brand has done itself too many favors with these acquisitions and the way that they've handled it. And I've
No.
actually softened a little bit on Phil Spencer in the sense that I do feel that statements made at a particular time are true at that time.
Yeah.
Like the whole, how I said before, like, ZeniMax is an acquisition to bring games to Xbox and to places where Game Pass exists.
Exclusive to 4 games to
Yeah.
there'll be more.
Yeah, and at that time they didn't have ABK, and maybe economically they could have kept ZeniMax games exclusive. Then they brought Activision, and that all changed. They launched these 4 games to other consoles, and they did extremely well. At least 2 of them did. And again, because of Activision, like Microsoft are now looking at Xbox saying, well, keep doing this. So at that time, it was true. So I do think that as much as I've given Phil a lot of flack, and I do think a lot of the time he needs to not talk because of things like this, I do think there is a part of me that goes, at the time, what he was saying was true at the time, but things have changed.
Well, at least they're
So
agile.
I'm excited for the future of Xbox. Like, I mean, you're never going to replicate what PlayStation do, and you can never replicate what Nintendo do. You don't need to be successful. Like, you can just be the biggest publisher in the world, which they could easily be if everything was day and date everywhere, and make more money than Sony does doing what they do. Like, who really cares at the end of the day?
And I think with this showcase, I think that's a good indicator that Xbox is actually it is on the right track, but now we're actually starting to see some of that come to fruition. We're starting to see some of that evidence rather than just all talk, which is all they've been doing because they've needed to talk to be able to catch up. Now they're at a stage where okay, we can start showing action, and they've had a whole range of games for this showcase, just this showcase alone, that has gotten people excited about Xbox over the next 6 months and even over the next 12 months because a bunch of these are coming next year. One of them, which hasn't got a release date, but we did get the announcement, was the final game that they showed for the showcase. And
I was just going to say before you get to that, because you
Yeah.
probably heard me like mouthing as I was
yeah,
doing.
you're
To
reading
your
something,
point,
yeah.
30. I was just counting how many things were announced. Right, 30 games, or shown. Like 15 or 16 of those, if I've counted correctly, are multiplat stuff. Totally fine. Like,
And about 15,
that's what I mean.
16
Like,
was what
it's
you were
totally
interested
fine.
in.
Yeah, no, like Indiana Jones and Gears, which we're going to talk to, are probably the 2 exclusives that I'm just looking at the list again.
Gee, I had a big
We'll
build up
play-
and you've really taken the wind out of my sails here, by the way.
Well, that's what I do.
See, if
But
this
yeah,
is
I
earlier,
just thought
come
that
on.
was an interesting point, right? Like, it's just, this is the world we live in now. Like, this is happening, and it's totally fine. If anything, this is going to make sure I watch the Xbox Showcase every year. Because I'm like, what am I getting?
Yeah, you're not going to watch Summer Games Fest, but you'll watch Xbox Showcase.
Exactly.
I-
Get more PlayStation games there than you do at a PlayStation Showcase.
Yeah, you do. But one game that we're not sure if it's going to come to PlayStation, I don't think it will, and that is
Not
Gears of War E-Day,
necessarily, yeah.
which is a prequel to the original trilogy and Gears of War Judgment as well. Don't forget that one there. So this is meant to showcase the relationship between Dom and, well, not relationship, but the friendship between Dom
Brotherhood.
and Marcus. Yeah, the Brotherhood. And this is E-Day. So this is when the Locusts came out and, took over the planet. And we see that from Gears of War, the first Gears of War. I think it was about 12, 14 years after the date.
Yeah.
So there's been a little bit of time gone. This is when it happens. And so if you've played Gears of War before, which I have played most of them, I think you've played nearly all of them.
Well, I've played 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is 4 the one with the robots
Yeah, I
that
think
no
so.
one likes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I didn't
5.
like Judgment either. And 5 I haven't played, but I've heard is really good. But
Yeah.
the first 3
First
hold a
3.
very
Let's say
special place.
first trilogy. And
Yeah.
the Locusts were seen as like these enemies, but they were big, dumb sort of things and all that sort of stuff. But now this is where, humans don't know how to fight the Locusts. And this is them coming up for the first time where everything is still in the unknown. Yeah, we've got an idea of where things go and, how it sets up for Gears of War Judgment as well as for Gears of War. But this is the start. And this is the game that they talked about that they really wanted to be able to do. And they felt that now was the right time to make this sort of game before we get a true Gears 6 and continue the story from 4 and 5.
That, and before, like, we didn't get the trilogy announcement that we thought we were getting, the Gears collection that was heavily rumored. So that's interesting. And
I didn't see a prequel coming. I didn't see a prequel coming.
No, and this was a really cool tone-setting trailer. Mad World playing in the background, which is a throwback to the 360 commercial that everyone loves. Great way to end your showcase. Like, what a fantastic... I love the first 3 Gears games, but I'm not like a Gears nut. And even I got the feels and the nostalgia kind of kicking in when I saw this trailer and the music started playing. So, man, awesome. This is awesome. I think this is a perfect show end, and I'm so glad this didn't get leaked. Like, we heard rumors of the Gears collection,
but we didn't hear the rumors about a prequel.
Xbox were good. Like, they set their YouTube, like, this is just a off-topic industry thing, but the stream was not it was a live premiere, so it wasn't actually uploaded to YouTube pre the time that it went live. So it meant that no one could actually watch it and leak half of the stuff. There was a lot of stuff in here that people knew were coming because they've already announced X game and we expect to see it. But it was good to have games like this not leaked. So yeah, a great showing. I cannot wait to play this. I'll be there day one.
On Game Pass.
Yeah, on my PS5.
I'm
going to stop. I'm going to annoy so many people.
You'll get it on your Samsung 2024 TV. Which actually, I spoke to somebody. I found somebody who has a new Samsung TV and they have the Game Pass app on the TV. And it is their Game Pass. And they came in, bought a couple of controllers, and they're like, this is the best thing. Because it's like switching over from Netflix to the Xbox Game Pass. All the games are there. We can do it through cloud. We don't have to worry about installing. Some of them you can install if you want to, but...
It's got a shiver.
Oh, you're thinking of the
Game
future.
Pass, ooh.
Yeah. But I agree. We both gave good reviews of the showcase. There was enough content there for us to talk for nearly as long, if not more than the actual showcase itself. We're coming up to nearly 2 hours on this episode, by the way. Big show. But I think it goes to show that there is now excitement for Xbox. And I'm happy about that because I'm happy about excitement for all games. It could be PlayStation, it could be Nintendo.
Then next week, it's, PlayStation, Xbox is dead again.
Oh, yeah, you'll still get that talk. But at the end of the day, we've got some great games coming later this year. We've got more games that have got 2025 slated as when they're expected to be released. We've got some games like Perfect Dark and Gears where, that could be a late 2025. Hell, it could be even an early 2026, which is what I'm starting to think with maybe not Perfect Dark, but definitely with Gears. I don't see Gears as a next year thing. If it is, geez, they've done all right.
Yeah, next year will be what? South and Midnight. Maybe Fable. I think Fable.
Yeah, Fable will be next
year. And yeah, I don't know if Perfect Dark or Gears will be next year. I think next year's like I said, right? Tone setting trailer. Next year's straight to gameplay, release date, bam, we're there.
But now I think with Xbox coming in with their showcase and I'm not going to say blowing everyone away, but definitely doing a damn good job.
I think that's
damn good job.
I think blowing blowing oneself away, yeah.
But now the attention moves to PlayStation and Nintendo. And there's been a lot of talk online about PlayStation saying, where's the showcase? People are getting a little bit upset and angry.
Yeah, I saw that.
But PlayStation's going to do what PlayStation does. They'll announce when they want to announce. We said September. I don't think
happening.
I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of months. I don't think they'll push it to a July or even an August, maybe a late August if that, but September. So my last question then is Nintendo. Do
Lori
they?
cat licks itself out in the background.
Yeah. Oh, she's been either sleeping or doing that the entire show. Lazy. Do you think? And I think I asked this last week, but I'm going to ask it again now. With the Xbox Showcase having performed, do you think that Nintendo's going to have a direct anytime soon? And as a follow-up question, do you reckon we're going to get any news on the Switch 2?
No. I think we might get a direct. I don't think it's going to be a big one. I think it's going to be one of those middle of the road,
Little small ones.
small stuff.
An update to Pokemon Cafe or something, and
the Switch is on its last legs. Like, it is. Regardless of how big it is and the success of it, it's on its last legs. So I wouldn't expect an announcement or an acknowledgement of hardware at all this year. I would be holding out for next year. I mean, they beat to their own drum, right? Like, they're not beholden to E3. They don't need to be at the Game Awards. They just do their own thing. And yeah, I just don't see anything happening this year.
So do you reckon we'll get I reckon we'll get a direct in July.
Yeah, we'll get a direct.
I think we'll get it before PlayStation as well.
Just don't expect like a big direct, because they're going to hold everything for Switch 2, right?
Yeah, we're not going to get like an expansion for Tears of the Kingdom and like Metroid 4 and
none of that.
We're not going to get that.
Temper expectations. Sony, on the other hand, let's put the pressure on. I think they need a big show this year, and I think they will have it.
Yeah, well, we spoke about it. I think it was last week that we want the show that's going to talk about the next 3 to 4 years. Give us a little bit of excitement. Give us a release date on Wolverine. Don't be cowards.
Yeah. Or at least, I think like I said, we should expect at least 3 or 4 big first-party announcements, and 1 or 2 of those to launch next year. So hold them to it. I mean, we it's the thing. We say we need it, but everything seems to be doing okay. But I think with Pro coming, expect announcements.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, I reckon we call it quits for today. It's been an absolute marathon of a podcast. I think we're over the 2-hour mark now, or at least close to. So it's been a bit of a time. But anyway, we've got a couple of things coming up over the next couple of weeks. There might be some more news filtering through, but otherwise, I think now's a good time to start to make your plans for Christmas. When you start getting those release dates, start inking them into your calendar. You need to know when you've got to preload and pre-order and get all those games ready. Have the second half of your year planned.
Yeah. Buy Alan Wake 2. Do your part.
For the second time. I've already got it.
Play it.
I bought it. So I've got it on the Epic Store. I got it because I got the I bought some other game and I got a coupon, and so I used the coupon on Alan Wake 2, and it came with Alan Wake 1 as well.
Yeah, no, just
easy way to do it. But anyway, we will be back next week, same time. If you haven't already, make sure you do follow YouTube. Here we do have some shorts as well that are coming through, and we're figuring out how those go. So make sure you watch them and give us some comments and feedback on that. Otherwise, thank you very much for a very large show there, Josh.
Yeah, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. Busy playing something, Twitter, YouTube, all that fun stuff. But no, it's been a great episode. Thank you for having me on.
Once again. That's all right.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time.